2, 1. Okay.
Hi guys, welcome to the second part of our watercolor tutorial. Today we'll be painting a tree using our watercolors. But before we get started, let's just say a prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this time that we have to come together, Father, in your presence, to be creative, to be expressing the creativity that you have put inside of us, Father. Thank you, Lord, to help us to get out what you have put in us. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, guys. So we're going to do just a really quick recap of all the supplies and things that we need in case people are joining us today that didn't join us for the last video. So you'll need a watercolor palette. It doesn't really matter what kind. Today, I am using a Crayola palette. So this is in case most people have Crayola palettes and they're really easy to find. A lot of grocery stores are having them. I think Miss Gia was talking a lot about Staples has them. So if you can get a Crayola palette, works fine. If you have something different, grab that. Just grab some watercolor paints. The next thing you're going to need is some watercolor paper. So I used it was actually a full sheet of paper that I cut in half. So I'm using half of a sheet of watercolor paper. You can use a full sheet of paper. It's just going to take you longer and it's going to be bigger. So bear that in mind as you're going along. You're going to need a container of water. So make sure you have some water nearby. You are also going to need a piece of paper towel, or I was telling students that you can use an old rag, mom approved, of course, but you can use a rag if paper towel is too much of a precious commodity. The last thing you'll need is a watercolor brush. So I have several brushes here. Ignore the fan, but it's a different brand. I have a Grombacher brush will work. A Princeton brush will work really well, just not a fan version. And then the one that I will be using personally is Golden Fleece. I get this from Cheap Joe's. I really like these. You can always use the brush, though, that comes with the kit. It's maybe not the best brush in the world, but if you have this, go ahead and use it. That's perfectly fine. I also was talking to Miss Gia earlier. There is a set of Artist Loft brushes I really quite like, but this one particular kind, and maybe we'll figure out a way to link it to you guys if you're looking to buy a different brush. It's pretty affordable. I want to say it was $8 for like a set of 4 or 5. So a very good value overall. Okay, so I have my brushes, I have my water, have my paint. Last thing is your setup. So you're going to want to have all of your material on your dominant side. So if you are a righty, you're going to put all of your paint, your water, your paper towel, everything on your right side. If you are a lefty, you're going to put everything on the left side. That's to help us to not be crossing our picture unnecessarily. So make sure you set up everything on the correct side for you. Okay, now, last thing is, before we ever start painting, we're actually going to be drawing. So today I'm going to be using a mechanical pencil. You can use a regular pencil if you would like. I just like the mechanical pencil. So we're going to start by drawing our tree. Now, if you followed my pen and ink tree tutorial yesterday, it is exactly the same tree. So it should be pretty easy if you did this yesterday. So what we're going to start with, you guys, is we're going to be doing very simple, I don't know, oval shapes, if you will. And we're going to do 4 of them. So the first one I'm going to do is up near the top, and I'm going to just draw a medium-sized oval. Make sure you're drawing it really lightly, you guys, because most of this is going to be erased. So do not draw really, really hard, because then you can't erase it. And this is just for placement. So I have one sort of big one at the top. Then as I'm looking, because I'm looking at my reference here, you guys, then I'm going to hop down a little ways, make a little gap. I'm going to draw a little baby oval. Kind of sits right there. Then I'm going to draw number 3. My third oval is going to maybe sit on the top of this little baby a little bit. Right there. So I've got 3 ovals. Then my last oval is touching the third one a little bit. And it's kind of more like a, I don't know, like a fat rock. Can everyone see that so far? So I have big blobby shapes. Okay. Now, I'm going to start maybe marking out really lightly where the branches go. So I'm going to start, or the tree trunk, I should say. No branches, just tree trunk. I have a tree trunk that comes all the way up to the top here. and it kind of curves in front of that little baby blob and then comes down and attaches to my fourth bottom blob. I'm drawing really lightly, you guys. We have a lot of lines to erase. So there's tree trunk 1. And then the tree trunk that's on the bottom, if it helps you, you're going to draw straight through your bottom oval. I'm not going to, but you need to make sure it lines up. If the bottom tree trunk doesn't look like it lines up, it's going to look really odd. So make sure that it kind of lines up with where it pops out at the top. The other thing to know about tree trunks, tree branches, the farther up the tree it goes, it's going to get skinnier. And with branches, the further away from the tree the branches go, they're going to get thinner and thinner. So make sure that at the bottom, your trunk needs to be wider than it is at the top. Otherwise, your tree is going to fall over. I might make mine a little more curvy. Move mine. Okay. Now this is just the beginning. Now we're going to go back and begin to actually make our blobs become part of a tree and not just giant ovals. So I'm going to start at the top. And this guy's got a lot of shape to him. So he's got little pokes and places that goes in and out. So when you're doing your tree, make sure that you're drawing little in and outs. I'm not even drawing full lines. Sometimes I pop over, and I'm using this oval as a guideline for myself for size, but you see I'm coming outside of the oval sometimes. I'm not staying in it. Maybe there's a little something that pokes out there. And then even after I draw this the first time, you guys, I might decide that I don't like it. I might come back and fix it, but we'll see. Okay, so there is my tree section number 1. And I'm just going in and erasing some of my extra lines. If you guys are ready, you can start working on blob number 2. Now he is behind the oval number 3, so you're not going to see all of him. So if it helps you, you can skip over and start working on the oval number 3. But I'm going to be doing the little guy. This tree kind of reminds me of like I don't know, some of those trees at the beach or like a giant bonsai tree. The nice thing about trees and foliage in general, it does not have to be perfect to your reference. So your tree might not look like my tree. That's okay. Just make sure to give your tree a nice amount of in and out so it doesn't look just like a little puffy, I don't know, puffy cloud tree or something. Make sure lots of in and outs. Okay, I'm moving down to the bottom shape of the tree now. Now this one is my longest one that kind of slightly curves on the sides. So he's like my longest piece. Okay. Okay, if you guys are done with the bottom tree, you can start making the branch that connects from the main trunk. So this is the main trunk here, and there's a branch that shoots off to the side and connects to the oval number 3 or section 3 of the tree. You guys can start working on that. I think I was going to fix my little guy. I'm not sure I like him, so I was going to change him a little bit. Something we talked about a little bit yesterday with regards to tree branches. You want your tree branch to have little, little angles to them, and it's not perfectly rigid straight. So make little bends and little movements to your tree branch. Just make sure that as you get closer to the main trunk, it should be getting slightly wider until it hits the main trunk. It shouldn't be itty bitty as you hit the trunk and then it's too wide as it hits the body of the foliage of the tree. So I'm just coming in now and drawing all my branches. They do not even have to follow what the reference is doing. You can add a few more. I wouldn't go crazy with the branches, adding like a whole lot of them. But if you guys want to add a few more here and there, go for it. Just make sure that you like what you've done before we start watercoloring. So now is the time to make little changes or fix something. Because if you don't like it, now's the time. All right, how's everybody doing with their tree so far?
Good.
Good?
Good.
Good.
Good. I'm already done with the outline.
Very good, Macy. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, is everyone ready to watercolor?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm getting my stuff ready. So before we actually start painting on our tree, I want us to very quickly test out combining colors together. Because in order to do this tree, we're actually going to be combining some of the colors like yellow, blue, and green. And I even used some brown into my green. So I want you to try this really quickly. Some of you, so if you don't have a Crayola palette, you're not going to have exactly the same colors as me. You're going to have entirely different colors potentially. And I think now is the time to check. Some of you I saw had big palettes. So you had different blues, you had different greens, you had different choices. So now is the time to actually choose the colors that you want. So if you have a Crayola one, you're pretty limited. You're gonna be doing what I'm doing, but I'm still gonna try my colors out. So I'm gonna use a piece of scrap watercolor paper, and I'm gonna test out some colors. So I want you to do that right now, you guys. I want you to test out your blue, make a swatch, it's called. Because the blue I have in the Crayola palette, so if you guys have a Crayola, yours is gonna look like mine. It's like a really warm blue. It's kind of like a phthalo cerulean sort of situation going on. So if you guys have the Crayola, that's what you have for the blue. My green, it's kind of like a sap green. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch them separately first, just so you guys can see them, but this is more for you. I want you to test your colors out. Maybe you've never done watercolor before. Maybe this is the first time you trying the paints that you have. Maybe they're new. So I want you to take a moment to try them, because what I'm going to have us do is after you try, in particular, I want you to try a yellow. If you have more than one yellow, try a couple of them. I want you to try a green, and I want you to try a blue. If your palette has several of them, try maybe 2 of them and figure out which one you like the looks of. And then we're going to actually mix some blues together with green, some blues together with yellow. We're going to try mixing some things. And then figure out if your palette has brown in it. So the Crayola palettes I was talking about earlier, there's a palette that looks like Crayola, but it doesn't say Crayola. It doesn't have brown in it, but this palette does. So we're going to talk a little bit about mixing colors. Okay, so here is the majority of the colors that we will be using on my painting. Because I have limited options. So I have blue, green, brown, and yellow on my test card right now. Now here's what I'm going to do. So you guys do this as you following along. I'm going to mix my blue and my green together to see what color I get. Miss Gia, is it turning, can you see the colors okay with the camera? Is it showing up?
I think it looks great.
Okay. So if you guys can tell on the camera, I mean, it's definitely not, it's like a blue-green. It's not just green, it's not blue, it's a blue-green. Blue with my yellow. See how different it looks. Not a whole lot different from just using straight green. Now, one of the mixes I did on my painting, and if you guys have been with me in class before, we've talked about this. I add brown to a lot of colors to kind of tame them down. To make the darker values in the tree, I used a lot of blue, green plus brown. So I want you guys to try that right now with your test card. Try mixing up a blue-green color and then adding brown. Not only will it earth it up, is kind of what I call it. It changes. So my green and my blue are very hot. Adding the brown to them makes them more earthy, more, think like army green. It just sort of cools them down a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of brown to my mixture. And you'll see how that darkens up and becomes a bit more muted. And I did a lot of that to create the shadows later in the painting. So you have to mix them up. And so find the colors you like. I would talk more about actual colors, because there isn't just one blue. So the Crayola palette has like one blue, one green, one yellow. But as you begin to actually expand into bigger palettes, there is a lot of blues, a lot of yellows, and a lot of reds. And they're all slightly different. So you're gonna need to practice to familiarize yourself with the colors and how they mix with other colors. So that's why I'm having you try this. So I think I'm about ready. How's everybody else doing?
Good.
Still mixing up.
Okay. Good. Got a lot of you mixing up. Naomi, how are you doing? Doing okay? Good. Lulu, how are you doing? You can just show me a thumb. Good. Good, Macy. Emma, how are you doing? Good. I'll give you guys just another minute and then we're going to start, okay?
And if you guys didn't know, there's a reaction button you can hit on your phone or on your device. And if you hit that, you can clap or you can hit a thumbs up too.
Oh, nice.
There you go. I see it, Emma.
Emma found that. Naomi found it. Good.
Yes. There you go.
Good. Good. Nice, Jenna. Yeah, there you go, Macy. It's actually easier to see than me waiting to see your guys' actual finger. Okay, so I'm gonna get started painting, you guys. So maybe if you're ready or not, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna set my card aside. Now, we talked about this in the last class, but I'm gonna talk about it again briefly. The primary technique that we'll be using throughout this is wet into wet. So that means is you're gonna be wetting the area that we're gonna be painting, and then we're gonna be mixing more than one color in to kind of get this effect, okay? So here's where the hair dryer is gonna come in, you guys. If you've taken class with me before as well, we've talked about, unless it's the look we're going for, if you have two areas that are touching, which this one has a lot, see how this tree branch, this one, they're all touching each other, right? If I were to paint all of these at the same time, I would have a lot of bleeding one into another. So I'm not going to do that. So what we're going to be doing, we'll start with the one at the top. Then we'll probably do either the baby or maybe the one in the middle. Then we'll blow dry and then we'll come back. Okay, so let's start at the top. So what I'm going to do is I left this tree kind of like a blue spruce. So he's leaning more towards the blue for me, but if you want to make him more green, that's okay. So I'm going to wet the tree, the top part of the tree first with just water. Okay, water first. Put it all over the tree. Stay out of your tree trunk as best you can. As soon as it is wet, I'm going to grab blue lightly. So I'm going to kind of water my blue down. So to water a color down or to make it lighter, you're going to add just a little bit more water to your mix, and it's going to lighten it. And I'm adding it all the way through my tree. I actually left like a little bit of pockets of white towards the top. If you guys want to do that, you can. But I wanted it really light blue. So not intense, not really dark, light. Okay, it is still wet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab more blue and I'm going to put a little bit of green into it. And I'm going to start towards the bottom because that's where it's the darkest. And I'm going to begin adding in my color. Now along the perimeter, you guys, I don't know if you can make it bigger, John, where I'm working. I can sometimes sort of dot around the edges. So it's not a giant solid blob. You can come out from it once in a while. So I'm not putting this green mixture to the very tippy top. You'll notice that there's a little bit of light up here. So I didn't put this green mixture up there. I'm staying more towards the bottom and then up towards the left. Okay, it is still wet and I can work a little bit more. So I'm gonna come back in with more blue, more green, and I'm actually gonna add now a tiny bit of brown into this. What I'm looking for is to continue to get the depth. part of the challenge with the Crayola paint is they're not very pigmented. So I had to go back several times in order to get the depth I wanted. So I'm trying to do that all within about a minute, because if I go much longer than that, it's going to get weird on me. Okay, you guys, I think I am going to be calling it quits, which means you should be too, because I don't want you working too long. I didn't talk about it in the last video, but you can completely overwork an area. So if you work too long, the paper will become overworked and you're gonna be left with a mess. So I'm done. So you guys should be finishing up whatever it is that you're doing at the top of the tree, and you need to stop. If it's not done yet and you're like, oh, I really could have done a little bit more, that's okay. Just stop. You can come back to it on the next layer. Everyone's like, brushes down. Okay, good. Now, I was thinking about it, and I think what it's going to be best is looking at the camera here. We're going to be not doing the second little guy. We're going to be doing the third one. You guys all follow me? So this guy right in here. Yes? That way, after we blow dry, we can do 2 next time. Okay, so we're gonna do exactly the same process. I want you to wet the surface first, then we're gonna do a light layer of blue, and then we'll kind of build up. So we're repeating. Miss Gia, did you decide that you were able to paint with us or not today?
I did the drawing, but then I'm having to answer some questions, so I'm not doing the painting right now. I'll have to do it later.
That's okay. I know that you and Mr. John do a lot of the stuff technical behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I was looking at that, your reference, that top part of the tree looks really cool.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Swirly colors in there. It looks pretty awesome.
It's kind of, I keep saying it earlier, guys. I am not, Miss Gia was the one who made me do the Crayola paints, and I'm not mad at him. So I'm coming in and I'm adding in more of my green color, my more green blue. Now keep remembering, you guys, I'm leaving the light towards the upper right-ish corner. So make sure that you need to be leaving some light. So do not put the second layer of paint and the third layer of paint anywhere too close to that light. Otherwise, you're gonna ruin that look. I think I'm gonna make my second guy though, maybe a little bit darker, because maybe that top part of the tree is the part that's exposed to the sun the most. So I take it back. I'm gonna put some more blue-green on the top because I think it needs it. Now I'm gonna add in my blue-green plus brown mixture and come back and start adding in some dark. Now you'll notice, you guys, if you look at my brush strokes really quick while I'm doing this, I'm not even really painting. I'm kind of pouncing, tapping. You see what I'm doing with my brush? Take a really quick look. See, I'm sort of tapping, pouncing. Sometimes I do that, especially with the paint. So this paint is not super pigmented. So the more I brush it, it kind of makes a mess. So I found that tapping it, pouncing it, applied more of the paint a little bit better. So something to consider as you guys are working. I've also said that in classes. I know people were confused when I was like, yeah, tap some of that in, and people had no idea what I was talking about. That's what I mean when I mean tapping.
Plus it makes it look more like leaves.
It does create a texture, doesn't it, Kayla? So even with my shadow, you guys, so you're imagining that like the bottom half is darker and the upper half is light. I'm not just making a straight line across the tree. You want to kind of go up and down and make some shapes, because if it's perfectly straight, it's going to look a little weird. So you're noticing that when I'm painting, I'm kind of coming in, kind of coming out. All right, we get a few more seconds, you guys, and then we are done. And I'm saying that to myself as well. We can't work much longer. Now, what I like about doing this together, you guys, is maybe this is good for you to see how much longer you would have worked if I wasn't telling you to stop. Because we need to practice not overworking our paper. That's probably one of the number one thing I see with beginning artists, especially younger artists, but even older ones. You guys will work and then it doesn't look right, so you keep working. And then, oh, it still doesn't look right, so you keep working. And then, I'm not kidding, 3-5 minutes later, you're still working on a small area and now it's overworked. And how you know it's overworked is what? Does any of my previous watercolor students remember what the paper does?
It bubbles up.
It kind of bubbles and puckers. So if you guys are looking at your paper,
wrinkles.
it wrinkles, but you'll see all the little fibers in the paper because they're soaking up water. So they begin to swell more and more and more, and you'll see them, they start to pucker up. So if that starts to happen, stop, because you're really close to ruining it. So I'm done with the second one. You guys should be too. So finish up last little area you're doing, stop, because now is gonna be time to use our hair dryer. All right, so I'm muting myself. Please blow dry your picture and then we will come back.
Hey, Miss Anna, do you think we could use salt on this one?
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. You can, Joey. Whenever you use salt, it's gonna slow the drying time. So if you salt it, you're just gonna have to blow dry it significantly longer. But you can if you want to. It's just gonna create an interesting texture.
Hey, Miss Anna, if you got like big clumps of, paint on there, how do you keep that from like shooting off and messing up your picture?
I didn't hear the beginning of the question, John. What was the beginning question?
You got like big clumps of water on there or, of paint.
Yeah.
How do you keep that from like flying off and
So
doing
part of what
something
I
wrong?
try to do is you saw me holding my hair dryer up high. So a lot of times when I'm beginning to dry something that's very wet, I will hold my hair dryer really high, because if you started with it really close to your picture, that's when the water can like explode off your paper. So start up higher and then you get closer and closer to it as it dries. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna just finish up hair drying. I'm almost done. Okay, so anyone using Crayola paint, I don't know if anyone had the same problem that I did, but I did not blow dry this the first time I did it. I let it air dry, and I'm having weird little lines pop up. Does anyone else have weird lines in their picture? No? Good. I do. So I will be fixing that at some point in my project today, but I'm not going to worry about it right this second. We can fix it. So if that happens.
With the shopping bag, with the grocery bag. Look,
What's that, Kayla?
mine is the one with the brown paper bag. Look at mine.
Is it working good? You're kind of backlit, sweetie, so I can't really see it. There's a lot of light behind you, so I can't see it real well. Okay, kind of see it. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the little baby, number 2, and then number 3. I want you guys to repeat the same process that we've been doing. So I won't walk you through it exactly the same way, but we're just gonna keep going. I did make my little baby last time, you guys, a bit more on the green side. So when I did that, I added more yellow to the green mixture to make it brighter. I just thought it'd be different to kind of mix it up and make it a different color. So if that's an option, if you guys want to do that as you're moving along, but I'm just going to paint mine, and I might go back and start fixing my problems in my little demo painting. Where'd my brush go? Here we go. Has Facebook Live worked better yet, Miss Gia?
Yeah, it's working. We're good.
Good. Is there any questions from anybody that's watching Facebook Live?
We have some people watching, but no comments,
Okay.
no questions.
Well, let me know if anybody on Facebook Live, you guys, you have a question. Let me know. I'll try to answer it. So I think I said this in this video already about fixing mistakes. You guys can fix mistakes immediately upon seeing that you made one, or you need to wait until it's blow dried. Now, something about the blow dried that I usually talk about with my students, because you need to know about it sooner or later. After you've blow dried something and it's cooled off just a little bit, because if it's freshly blow dried, it's hot anyway because the blow dryer's been on it. You need to put your hand to it. And if it feels kind of cool to the touch, it actually means you're not dry yet. You might be sort of dry, but you're not perfectly dry. So sometimes if you're lifting colors or manipulating it, if it's partially dry, you run the risk of hurting the paper again. So you need to really make sure that it is actually dry, fully dry. Make sure I'm not watching what you guys are doing. Make sure you come outside of your drawing once in a while with like a little light tap of your brush. It creates a lightness outside of your tree. So remember, it's not so thick and heavy weighted. Make sure you're doing that once in a while, especially along the edges. Well, it's only along the edges. I don't know how to do that. Okay, I'm moving down to the big one. He was kind of blue again. I think I actually made him more blue than anything else. I might up my blue-green mixture down there. I'm looking forward to seeing your salt technique on your tree, Joey. Something I was talking about earlier with Miss Gia was that different papers react differently. So depending on what kind of paper you guys are using, this may look a little different, which is okay. Every paper acts a little differently. That's kind of why at some point when you're talking to other artists and people ask, what's the best paper to use? There isn't a best paper. There's preferences. So everyone has their preference of the kind of paper they like to use. There's different brands. There's different what they call pounds. So referring to paper, they call it pounds. So if you look at the front of your pad of paper, it will say probably 90 or 140 pounds. I don't like 90 for what it's worth. I think 90 is like really thin, but 140 is the most standard. You see that everywhere. But then it goes up to, I think there actually is 4 or 450 pound paper. Then there's something called cold press and hot press. People from my last class in watercolor, do you guys remember the difference between hot press and cold press? No? I see a lot of no's. So the difference between hot press and cold press, and actually I had a teacher once tell me that made it stick, was she said, think about hot as like, think an iron. So an iron would make things smooth out your wrinkles, right? Smooth out the wrinkles in the dress or in your shirt. That's hot press. It's this much smoother textured paper. Some artists love working with it. It doesn't show as much texture, but it's a bit more finicky. It soaks up the water a lot faster. And then cold press is the standard, if you will, for watercolor paper is cold press. And it's got the texture in it. So when you look at it, it can have all the little bumps and the little texture to it. That's the cold press.
How do you feel about watercolor pencils? Do you use those?
I don't. Now, maybe it's because I haven't found one that I'm in love with. But I've just found for me, when I use them, you go to rehydrate them and it's really hard work to get all the little weird bumpy texture of the pencil to go away. So I've just never really gotten into them, but maybe that was my pencil. Maybe I had a bad pencil. But a lot of people like them. So if you have watercolor pencils, I find I wouldn't use watercolor pencils by themselves for a whole picture unless you want to just use it to kind of add a little emphasis somewhere or get in somewhere tiny because you can sharpen your watercolor pencil. But that's just my opinion.
Macy says she has watercolor pencils, but she doesn't use them as much.
You should try them. I think everyone should try them. Practice them. Try all the little exercises that we've done so far with your pencils and see what they do.
Do you have a set, Miss Anna?
I do have a set and I'm trying to play in my brain where it is. I might have to find it later for next time and we'll talk about watercolor pencils next time.
Yeah, we should have you do a lesson on that so we could just get where we could get on it. And maybe we'll send you a set.
That sounds good. Okay, guys, I finished so far the 2 ones that we talked about painting. So I did the little baby and I did the one on the bottom. Now we're gonna fix my problem. So my hair dryer, like I said, I didn't blow dry this last time. I did this with air dry. So I feel like some of the lines that have developed in my picture are probably from the hair dryer and that it's Crayola. So I'm gonna go back and fix this. So let's talk about how to fix things that go wrong in your painting. So I'm gonna scoot this down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to gently rehydrate the bottom section of this top guy. So I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to gently rehydrate in little circular motions over that weird line in my painting. And I'm going to try to make it go away. So if you had weird deposits of color, that's what you can do is just gently rehydrate. I'm going to wash my brush out, grab clean water, and now I'm going to put a little more water down because now is the time I'm going to go back and deepen up my top tree. So regardless if you had any mistakes, you're going to want to darken up the top of your tree a bit more. But if you have to fix a mistake, start with that. So now where you guys are going to really try to grab a lot of paint to very little water ratio and get your green, your blue, and your brown. And we're really trying to just tap this in and get some really good depth. Now I'm trying to remember if I actually was cheating and I used a little bit of black because these paints are not super pigmented. I bet I did. Let me try. Yeah, I think I did, you guys. If you're using Crayola or any paint that's not getting enough oomph, I'm not usually a fan of using black. But if you guys have a paint that's just not getting enough pigment, not enough dark, you can add just a little bit of black. Just don't go crazy with it. Yeah, it's getting me a more oomph. So I am using a little more black on the bottom of my tree. Gianna, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
I'm catching up, and I'm pretty sure I'm done with all of the trees.
Okay. Have you finished even adding the dark, like the extra dark?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm happy with it.
Okay. If you're done, go ahead and blow dry all of the foliage part of the tree and start working on your tree trunk. So add in a light wash of brown all the way through the branches of the tree trunk if you're done. That goes for everybody. If you guys have gone beyond me and you're working on the tree trunk, make sure you dry the foliage before you do the tree trunk because you don't want that to bleed.
Yes, ma'am.
For anybody else who had mistakes like me, I'm going back now into the second section and I am rehydrating the weird little lines that developed. So if that happened to anybody else, maybe it was just me, but I'm going to try to get rid of them because I'm not in love with how that looks. I'm trying to see if I can get away with not using my hair dryer right away because I did not like how that dried. See, I'm getting to know my paints. This is something everyone's gonna find out when you're using new products. The limitations or things that happened that you didn't like. I did not like how these dried with a hairdryer. Liberty, how are you doing? There was a face there. Is there a question or you want me to see what you're doing and see if I could help you? What's going on?
I don't know. Oh, my phone fell. That's one thing.
No, you're doing okay, sweetie. It looks like the top part of your tree, so that very top foliage section,
Yeah.
is having really harsh line drying.
Yeah.
If you want to, what you do is you take a damp brush, not sopping wet, just damp, and you lightly go around that edge and see if you can lighten that up a little bit.
Okay.
Or they soften it up a little bit. See if
Okay.
that doesn't help you out a little bit on that top area.
All right. Thank you.
My tree is turning out a little differently this time than it did the first time, which is okay.
Miss Anna?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we're doing the trunk, do we wet it first?
I didn't because it's so small. It's usually size based for me. So if it's a small area, don't worry about it. Just paint it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna have to blow dry my picture again, you guys. So I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna try to blow dry a little bit.
See how high she was?
I've also noticed if there's any mistakes, if I dab it with like a paper towel, it helps.
Yeah, I didn't hear the beginning of what you said, Kayla, but I agree with you in the end there. Yes. So I tried to push my picture in front so that you could see what I was doing. While I was drying it, I had this huge pocket of water sitting at the end of one of my tree bush foliage areas. And I actually, while I was drying it, I was just gently soaking it up with a piece of paper towel. So if that happens and you have a puddle, don't like aggressively attack it, but you can just gently sort of lift out a puddle if you've got something sort of sitting heavy on your picture. Now I'm kind of not mad at the interesting design happening up here with how the black is drying. I'm not mad at that. I think it was kind of neat. So if you guys want to, I think the black actually made it, that's probably what did it in my first one too, was the black was settling weird. And I actually like how it ended up turning out. It's kind of doing that now in my next one. Okay, so I'm mostly dry, you guys. I have a few part of my bushes that are a little wet. We'll see if I can make it work and not bleed into my tree, but I'm trying not to waste too much time with the hair dryer. Make sure you guys are dry though, because I don't want you to have a bleeding accident and then have your tree trunk bleed into your tree foliage area. So to do the tree, what I started with was the brown. Now, if you don't have brown, you always can make brown, but that might be trickier for if you're a beginner. If you really don't have brown in your palette, you can mix opposites on the color wheel. So opposites on the color wheel would be like red and green. If you mix red and green together, you'll get brown. Pretty much every palette has red and green. But I have brown, so I'm going to use brown. So I'm going to take brown, and I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to paint my whole tree trunk with the brown. I'm going to try not to bleed into that green. Whew. Now, I know that Gianna, you were starting your tree trunk, and maybe somebody else started their tree trunk. While it's wet, I actually came back in with brown mixed with blue to get more shadow in the darker areas. So if you're working on your tree trunk, while it's wet, you need to go back in and add in the brown blue mixture so it's a bit darker. I think I added red in there as well, since my blue and brown made kind of a funky color. I think I added red to mine. Yep, I added red to mine. Now, if you guys are doing the itty bitty branches, I'm using the absolute smallest part of the tip of my brush. So this is actually a medium-sized brush. This is not a baby brush, but I just am barely touching. So I can get quite a small line just using this very lightest pressure with my brush. So if you don't have a baby, you can still make this work. Now, if your brush is gargantuan, it might be hard, but even sometimes those gargantuan brushes have like a itty bitty bit of bristles at the end. I am especially adding more shadow right underneath the branches that are underneath the green part of the foliage of the tree, because there would be a little bit of a shadow being cast. So make sure you're adding a little bit more shadow directly underneath.
Miss Anna, I think I'm done.
You're done. Are you sure?
Yeah. For some
Why don't you
sure.
show it, put it up for full so I can see, please?
I think I just need to wait for a little bit more drying.
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of steps. Gianna, that looks good, sweetie.
There's a highlight right here, but that's not. Wait.
I think I'm done too.
Oh my gosh, why are all you
Two.
guys faster than me? I don't know.
Maybe we just have done it longer than you.
Maybe I talked too much.
Or we just have quick hands.
Fine, maybe you guys are all just way faster than me.
We're eager.
Ooh, I like it, Macy.
Thank you.
Oh, I like it, Macy. It kind of reminds me, yours reminds me of a Japanese tree. I
My
like
mom
it.
said the exact same thing.
See? It does. It looks really cool.
Mom, you called it a Japanese tree.
I think I'm finished too.
You're finished too? That sounds like Joey.
No, this is Abby.
Abby. Sorry about that, sweetie.
I finished, I think.
Is that
Yes.
Jenna?
Yes.
Nice. Wow, you guys, I'm not done yet. Hold on.
I think I might add a little bit of a background to mine.
Just make sure your tree's dry. So whenever you add background, you need to make sure the tree is dry. Otherwise, you'll get some massive bleeding.
I'm just wiping away the extra salt.
Don't worry, I'm finishing too.
Okay, good. Ooh, who's this? This is Lulu. Abby, this is you. Nice.
Lulu.
Beautiful. I like that.
I can tell it's Lulu because she said.
You guys, this turned out pretty good. What do you think about this one? Was this one fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Emma says she's not done yet.
Who's not done?
Emma,
Okay, good. So thank you, Emma. You and I are in the same camp. Thank you.
Turn on the hair dryer.
I thought it was just me.
I'm not done yet either.
Who's that?
Me, Kayla.
Me.
Kayla.
Either.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad it's not just me. For a second, I was like, geez, you guys, you all left me in the dust.
All the kids are working faster than the teacher.
I know. I don't know how I feel about that.
I think I might be done.
2 of the kids are as fast as the teacher.
Funny.
Are you sure you didn't move too fast? You know, my mom always told me when I finished chess too fast, she'd be like, okay, well, now go back and double check and make sure you're done. Make sure you like all your problems. Okay.
I think I might be done.
Ooh, I like the texture.
Maybe go back to your trees. Just double check. Make sure everything's dark enough. Make sure you did everything that you want to do before you call it quits.
May add a little bit more brown on the bottom.
Make sure, did everyone add the nice shadow in your tree trunk? That's kind of what I'm doing right now, is I'm really adding the contrast. Make sure you guys have contrast.
if you're finished, you could snap a photo of it and then you or your parent could post it to Facebook
We would love that.
under this so we can see, because we had all kinds of great projects this morning and yesterday, and we don't have any good pictures.
All right. I am pretty happy with mine. I think it's done. So now I'm done. Now, I would like you guys to sign your pieces. So I want us to start practicing signing. So you can use a pencil if you would like, or use a pen,
And it looks
your paintbrush. You can sign with whatever. Now, really quickly, I did tell a few people, I'm not going to do the whole thing at all because it's going to take a whole other lesson by itself. Here's the tree I did first, you guys. You can always come back and add a little bit of pen. So I'm going to grab a pen. And I'm going to show you really, really briefly. I'm not going to do the whole thing. If I came back in and just added a little bit of pen, this is going to look, it's just going to make some of it pop. So I'm going to do part of the tree trunk and part of the tree, and then I'll let you guys go to town on your own time at home. If I came through and added a little touch, it just looks like an illustration. So I think it looks kind of neat. And I've always personally loved the combo of pen and ink plus watercolor. I think it's lovely.
Why don't you check out my picture?
Okay, let me see, Joey. Oh, looks good, Joey. I see you got a lot of salt on there, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Well,
What do you think? Do you like the salt texture?
Yeah, it leaves all these little bump looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be best on this area. It would make it give a little more leaf-like texture.
Mm-hmm. It would.
Look like
Okay.
mine. No.
That's turning out better. I can having a hard time still seeing. I don't know if it's the light in your room. That looks good.
Okay, Emma says I did it.
Oh, good, Emma. You finished too?
Okay, good. She's holding up
Good.
hers, Emma, and then let's see Naomi's. Hold it up, Emma.
I see Emma. Very good, Emma.
Oh, nice.
Good job. Very good.
Okay, then Naomi, hold yours up like you were before.
Yeah, let me see Naomi.
I'm not quite finished. I just need to add just a tiny bit more.
Okay.
And then Celeste or
Yeah,
Jenna.
yeah. I didn't see
Let's
Jenna. Let me see you.
Jenna. Ooh, it fills the whole. I like that.
I like that, Jenna. Very good. Is that a background in there, sweetie? Yeah.
It looks like it's just a giant tree filling the whole paper.
Has a background.
How are you doing? I haven't talked to you or checked in with you for a while. How are you doing?
Abby,
Who?
Oh, nice, Liberty. I can see it now. It's sideways, but I can see it. Very good. So if you want to look at mine again. Oh, good. Liberty, I like it. And looks like, are you starting pen?
Yep.
Yes, very good. Very good. See, that's what I was doing here too. I was just adding a little bit of pen to this top part of the tree here so you guys can see it. I just added a little bit, and I added a little bit on the tree trunk so you can see that it kind of makes it pop a little bit more. So something on your own, experiment with putting pen on your picture. I think it's going to look really cool to do that. So another option. So you guys, that's what I had for today. Is everyone good? Any more questions before we sign off? Anna, it looks good. I saw you over there blow drying. You're still doing some last minute things.
One question that's not quite related. Can I move on to shading?
Oh, let me see now, Anna. Let me see. See, yours does too. Yours has kind of like a Japanese sort of vibe to it as well. I like it. Very good. What was your question, Kayla?
May I move on to shading in this?
Into what? The tree?
My midterm project.
Of course you can. Do you have a reference?
Yeah, I have shading pens.
Okay.
Actually, my papa does, but
okay.
So we own them.
Good. Miss Gia or Mr. John, do you have anything else before we sign off?
I have one suggestion about using the salt. You should make sure the salt sticks, because if it doesn't, the blow dryer will blow it away.
It does. That's one of the challenges of blow drying a salted picture, is it shoots salt all over the room. As my husband can tell, because when I did it, I was painting projects on the floor on our carpet, and my husband came back home to find salt all over the floor. So yes, that is part of the problem with salting a picture.
Okay, I think we're ready to stop our Facebook Live now.
Yeah, so check your email this weekend for next week's schedule.
Yep.
Bye.
This was fun, guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Macy has a question for you.